Hey guys, thank you for joining us today. I am so excited because if you only knew what it took for us to get this particular segment of She Is Me out, you would be just as excited as we are. Brittany, hey, thank you for joining us. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Brittany, and I have a bunch of kids. I have three daughters and a son, and I have one stepdaughter. And I homeschool all of them. So that's my journey right now. God definitely has been guiding me through that. I'm married. I have a husband named Scott, and that's really as good as it gets.
Well, that sounds awesome. That sounds like a full life already.
Yeah.
But let's just jump into it. Can you tell me about a time when you thought everything in your life was falling apart, but really God was using that to make things fall into place for you?
Yes. Well, like 4 years ago, everything was falling apart. Definitely. Just everything was not how it was supposed to be. Just lost in sin completely. I don't really want to give too much glory to the enemy on that one.
Amen.
But yeah, just completely lost. Me and my husband, we separated for quite a couple. I don't even remember how long it was, but we were both just not doing okay. And then we had reconnected, and still, the only way we knew how to connect was through, doing things that weren't good for us. And then there was one day where I decided, I had so much anxiety in my heart, and I didn't know why. And at that time, I didn't even believe in God. Was totally kind of opposite of that.
Yeah.
So much anxiety that I went to Sonic, and I just sat in my car and ate some tater tots. And I was in there, and I was like, somebody, whoever is out there, please just help me. I didn't even profess like anything. I was just like, somebody please help me. If this God person is real, like, I need you.
Yeah.
And, within probably it was a very short time. I had a really bad pain in my stomach, and I was like, okay, Sonic usually doesn't hit this fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had called God, and I was like, I need to go to the emergency room. Like, something is just not right. I need to go to the emergency room. And I got there, and when I went in there, they asked me all these questions, if you think you're pregnant and all that stuff. So they did a urine test, and I ended up being pregnant, which, wasn't a huge surprise because I wasn't doing anything to prevent anything like that. So the ultrasound tech came in, and she had done like the vaginal ultrasound, and she was like, hold on, hold on. So at first I was like, okay, whatever. So then she did the ultrasound on top of my stomach, and at the hospital, they can't tell you, anything that goes on in the ultrasound.
Right.
So the doctor came in, and he's like, you have a really big baby inside of you. A really big, like, he emphasized I'm like, wait, so like I have like an obese, is that
That's like a little bit rude, but okay.
And he's like, no, you're like, I think it was between 32 or 34 weeks. That time was very just crazy. But I was very in third trimester, like about to give birth in that month or a couple months.
Yeah.
And I freaked out. Like, I just remember sitting in that hospital room and like screaming. The nurse like, dude, like, you're gonna have to you're gonna have to calm down. I don't understand. So the next day, I woke up, and I had this huge stomach that looked pregnant, because nobody even knew that I was pregnant, which was the crazy part.
Like,
And
nobody in your life, in your circle, suspected at all.
no, nobody. I mean, I was, unfortunately, I hate to admit it, but I was going out and partying with these people. Right. So I had woken up the next day, and it was very much real. And I just know that if the way that I was at that time, that if God would have exposed that to me any sooner, then I don't think that it would have made us that point. That baby would have not have been protected with, the world I was living in and my mind state. So looking back now, I see God in that situation, even though I didn't back then. And just from that moment, and he, led me to the adoption route.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because I have, 4 children, or
Right.
I had 3 children at the time.
Yeah.
Ever think about giving a child up for adoption was just not my,
Yeah.
but I was just being led, by God, even when I didn't even know him or accept him or any of that. He just was like, had his hand just guiding me through this, like, board. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Which God, of course, the miracle worker he is. The therapist that I was saying, she's like, oh, we have an email for you. Well, because they put you on a database. So this family had sent me like a video of their family with my name in it, like, hey Brittany, we want to bless you and this baby. And they showed pictures of their family, and this is very like it was just an answered prayer for everybody. And then I had her. Her name was Koa. Her name is Koa. And we all got to meet in this little room, and I seen the blessing of it all. Like I said before, I didn't know God, but I still seen something moving. And then I got to meet them the next day after I recovered. And they're telling me how their son has been praying for a little sister, and he's been asking for a little sister, and they're like, well, you gotta ask God for that. And I was all of a sudden like, after that, I still didn't. It took me quite a while to still accept that, and find God and find all of that.
I'm sure there was so much things that you were processing at the time alongside of your husband. And how did you handle that? Was that something that you guys processed through together, or was it something that, like, because of everything else that was going on, it was just you were dealing with what you had to deal with and let him deal with what he had to deal with? Like, how did you guys handle that, or how did you handle that?
Well, honestly, like, Scott was so supportive, through it all. And obviously, just being open and honest with each other. Like, we both knew that, that happened in the time that we were separated. That was something that we had to deal with. And Scott was so supportive. He would go with me every single doctor's appointment. Every single time I'd have to go to therapy. He was with me through the whole process because, Scott, he had a history of, he got baptized. He knows God. He knows the Bible from the front to the back, where it's just like great. So, he knew the blessing. He knew what was going on, even in that moment when we were both still very lost. He knew, and he was so supportive, and which made it 10 times easier, because I could have never imagined doing that. Without.
You think that God used that to kind of bring that divide and bring you guys back unified?
Yeah, it definitely did. And there was never, any shame or any guilt or anything that ever came from it. And, I, of course, after that, I self-destructed for a while. Like, it was just like this, like, cold, like this trauma. I came home from the hospital. I had no baby, which I've never experienced that before, because I've always brought my babies home. And I self-destructed, and of course he was right alongside with me. And there was just one day he was like, look, like, we're not doing this anymore. Like, no, I can't sit back and I can't watch you, and I can't be a part of it. So if I would have never had him there for that, who knows? I don't even think that I would be sitting here right now if he wasn't like, dude. Worked for a tattoo shop, and his boss, she's a huge believer. And I remember he went out to lunch with her, and he brought her in the house, and was like, she's like, I'm gonna pray for you. And I'm like, okay. Like, okay. And then ever since then, life has just been amazing. So
was that like your turning point when his boss came in and prayed for you to kind of get out of that self-destructing mode? Like, I can totally relate. Was that kind of like that turning point where the tater top moment came full circle, and all that happened, you're ready to surrender?
Yeah, it definitely was. After she prayed for me, we were going to Bible studies at his, like they had Bible study at the tattoo shop.
That's so awesome. I love it.
So even like when they have clients like, oh yeah, we have this Bible study, and people are like,
Yeah.
but they people go,
Yeah.
and that's the best place to find
Yeah.
broken people, is at a tattoo shop, obviously.
When you started to allow God to work on your heart, what did he reveal to you about yourself? And I mean, I guess this whole journey, like what did he reveal to you about yourself?
Um, that I'm not the most important person. That my plans and my purposes are silly. Like once I surrendered, once I was like, okay, I have no idea what I am doing. That day that I said that and I confessed that and I truly believe that, and because my mom, I watched her my whole life, just everything that she wanted to do, is there was no sacrifice, there was nothing. So I grew up, doing that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been a huge, I have to do it my way, and this is good enough. And if it's not, that I'm going to blame somebody else. I've never had control over anything, and I thought I did. I thought I was like golden, but really, no.
I think it's so huge that you were able to take that kind of correction from God in that fragile state that you were, in that mess that you were at the time. And so, how were you able to receive that correction? And what did that correction reveal to you about God's heart towards you? Because most people would get offended if that's something that God would show them. Like, there's Christians who have a hard time when God tries to correct them and be like, listen, you're being selfish, or are you doing this for me? Or are you doing this for yourself? So like, what did that really reveal to you about God's character and his love towards you in correction?
Growing up, I never had a, strong father. I never had a father, really. I kind of, met him one time and it wasn't good.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of I see it as a father, I see him as my father in heaven, where, he's going to let me mess up. He's going to be like, no, 2 + 2 is 4. And I'm like, no, it's 5. And he's going to be like, no, it's 4. And then we're going to go back and forth. And then he's like, all right, then fine, write 5. And then I'm going to get my quiz back and it's going to be the wrong answer. I'm like, okay, well, it was 4.
Yeah.
I was surprised, but like, that's just how I see it. I don't see it as, condemning me or I'm broken, and he's here to help me. And he was there, he watched me from the sidelines, and thinking about all the times where he was there, and I was like, nope, I got it.
Yeah.
And then just seeing that, I'm like, I needed you all along, and I called to you without even knowing that I'm calling to you, and you were there faster than anybody has ever been. And now you're here doing what I'm asking you to, I asked of you.
Yeah.
So why, be resilient to that? Why go against that? I was born into a broken family. I was born into a broken world. I'm doomed if I don't continue, following him, because he's the only one who knows what's best for me.
Yeah. I love that you see it as the perspective of, because you didn't have a dad, because most people would take it the opposite way. I didn't have a dad, so why would I listen to God? But you took it as I didn't have a dad, and here God is trying to be my father. And you took that and you were like, okay, this is what I needed. This is what I've missed my whole life. And so many times we're so resistant to that. Like, we cry out what, like how you said, whether it's you actually prayed it to God or not, he knew what you wanted and he knew what you needed, and he came and he gave it to you. But there's times where we're crying out to God to give us something, and when he gives it to us, we're like, no, that's not what I want, or that's not what I want it. And the way you described it is so perfect, because that's exactly what it says in Proverbs. It says that he corrects those that he loves. Like, if you're getting corrected by God, you are his child. And so I love that you made that connection. What is something valuable that experience that you've always taken with you?
Just knowing that God has a plan and a purpose, and just that once I like I said, once I surrendered to that, it, countless of blessings, just things just continued to, it's kind of hard to even like describe all the good things that have happened. But, I feel like God has blessed us tremendously. And I've always, prayed for a son. Like I've always known that I was a boy. Like I have this like boy mom. I've always known that I've had that. I've always prayed for a boy. And I feel like God honored that prayer. And not saying that I had to, give up, just living out God's will, and doing what he intended me to do. He blessed me with a son, and my son's amazing. And it's for anybody that's never went through that situation of giving up somebody for adoption. It's one of the most selfless things that you can ever do, and especially knowing that there's a plan and a purpose that is not yours, and following that, and then God blessing you for living that purpose for somebody. It's really hard for people to be like, it sounds insensitive, it sounds like, but in all of that, like it's not, it's we're born for a reason. And it's made me realize that God's plan is much greater than mine. Even to teach my kids that, of course my kids are very involved. They know what I've done. They met, when I gave birth, they were there. They're part of the whole process.
Wow. I love that. I love to hear even how you incorporated your children into that being a learning experience. And I had a rough past, and like I self-destructed in front of my kids, my two oldest, when they were little. And I was like, okay, when I started pulling myself together, I was like, okay, this can either be that thing we don't ever talk about. I saw mom act crazy. I saw mom throw things. I saw mom cussing and yelling and not being nice. And then we don't talk about it, and mom got better. And that's all that, like have that confusion as a child. Or I can take this opportunity to teach my children, this is what I battled. This is how I battled it. You don't have to do it the same. But if you make mistakes, it's okay, because you can come back from it. And so what's some advice that you would give her to get back up, to not let that destroy her?
Just trust God in everything. If we feel like God is not close, it's because we still have our hand in something. We can say we trust God all the time, and but still like have like two fingers, on something. Like when you completely just trust him, and even in those moments where you don't understand, like why this, why do I have to go through this in order to do this? But you just have to trust him in any situation. God doesn't do things to hurt us. He doesn't do things, he doesn't put us through things. The world does that, our sin does that. God doesn't put us in those situations, but he can take us out of those situations, and he can help us learn from them, and he can minister through those situations to us. But I really just, what helps me was just knowing that God is good, and his plans are nothing compared to mine. And his love is not our same way of love. The way we think of love and his love are completely different. So when we feel like, why are you doing this to me? We really need to turn it around and be like, okay, what are you doing for me? Instead of, why are you doing this to me? And that was the whole thing that got me through that. And of course, lots of, you definitely need support, and you definitely need therapy. And people think, okay, I have God, I'm good. Like, no, you still need to, work on those things. There's professionals, I would definitely check into credentials before you just go to anybody. But God, he doesn't plan to hurt us. And things happen, I have to show grace for myself all the time that things happen. It happened. I got over it. I never thought I was going to, but I did. And even 10 times better.
I love that you're so open about it and that you're real about it, because it is something that people don't talk about. Usually there's two options. You have your baby or you have an abortion. There's not really much talk about adoption and even being on the other end of it. So I really appreciate your vulnerability to talk about it from from someone who's experienced, not from somebody who has, an idea of what adoption is or what it should be and how it's just a better alternative. Like there's so much more to it. So to ask that question a different way, what's one piece of advice that you would give a wife who has a marriage that is in destruction, and a tool that you use now to keep your marriage strong and firm?
This is a good one. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. But is putting God first. But before I knew God, Scott was responsible for my happiness. Like seriously, like before we got baptized and before we got married, we got baptized first and then we got married about 2 months later.
Yeah.
And before then it was like, why aren't you doing this for me? Like, why are you not satisfying this? Why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? I was looking to my husband to be God, and he's just as broken as I am. We're both just very broken people that happen to love each other very much. So, and once I was like, okay, God first, you, me, and there's so much grace and love that I have for him now. His bags are no longer packed. His clothes stay comfortably folded and hanged in the closet. Because he's not responsible for that. His responsibility is to love me the best way that he knows how, and we pray for each other a lot. Realizing that we can't fix each other, and that's why a lot of marriages fail and a lot of things fail, is because we look to each other to fix each other and to help each other, and it's like that's not what God created us to do. If things don't happen the way, I'm like, is your hand still in it? Like, are you still holding on? Like, is God still kind of like trying to like keep you from trying to control the situation? And I'll check myself, because I always still have like, a little hold, like I don't want to completely let go of this. So.
Yeah, definitely. I can totally relate. I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that as like a self-check, like a heart check. Chelsea, hand still in it, because I can already say 10 out of 10 times, yes, it's if I can already say it because I already know. But I really appreciate your vulnerableness and your openness to talk about your marriage, to talk about the adoption, and just to be so real and raw, because it's refreshing. It's to hear testimonies that are just unfiltered, I think is so freeing, not just for the individual releasing it, but also for people who hear it. So thank you so much, Brittany. And how can we keep in touch with you as a homeschool mom, as a wife, and how can we stay encouraged by you?
Well, my Instagram is Brittany Ledbetter X. But yeah, I'm always open to help anybody, or that's why I'm here. So I'm definitely willing to, if anybody has any questions or anything, that's how to get a hold of me.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy that you got to be a part of this series, even though the enemy tried to make it not happen. I'm so thankful. And I hope that you all were blessed. I know I was blessed by her story, and I was blessed. I know my marriage will be blessed even because of your story. And so thank you so much. And I can't wait for you to tune into our next segment of She Is Me.